Hey, it's Soleil, and this is episode 155 of the Orange Pill Investor. And today I want to talk about dirty, filthy, rotten long options. I'm an options seller, so as much as it pains me to talk about long options, it can give you some leverage and work out in your favor if stock price goes up on something, which is why I purchased a couple MicroStrategy LEAPS all the way at the top of the chain. Those the most affordable, and they were about $5,000 when I bought them. And these are looking fairly affordable now. I'm tempted to actually pick another one up again. I think I sold one for about 10 and doubled my money on that when MicroStrategy pumped last time. But I would prefer to have at least two of these for each of my covered calls. I think the two that I have probably only covers me for one of my covered calls. The other covered call is it's covered by, I have 40 extra shares that are uncovered as well, which helps. But I'm tempted to sell some of those shares and buy more LEAPS. But these are damn expensive. So what if you want a leveraged Bitcoin derivative play but can't afford MicroStrategy? Well, the two cheap options that I trade are HUT and RIOT. And I wish I had done this video early in the day because the prices on HUT and RIOT were almost identical. So that's why I compared the two. Other, the 35 strikes on RIOT and HUT all the way out to January, you would think, all other things being equal, that these LEAPS would be the same price on the same price stock. However, you can get the $35 strikes for 10% cheaper in HUT than RIOT. And let me just check the delta. So the delta on this one's 0.35. Delta on this is 0.39. So pretty similar. And if it's not immediately obvious that the HUT option getting the same strike for cheaper makes sense, let's go to Options Profit Calculator and compare what would happen given, let's just say, Bitcoin quadruples or something, and these stocks go to $40 a share. What would happen? So we're going to get the January 16th. I'm going to go all the way here to the 35. I think the prices might be a little behind. It's going to be in profit in dollars. Oh, let's pump it up to $40 a share. So if the price is $40 a share at expiration, you paid $200, it's worth $500, so you net $300. For RIOT, selecting the same strike on the same day, you're going to pay a little bit more for it, and we want this to go up to 40. Which means that if the price does go to 40 at expiration, you're going to pay a little bit more, so you're going to get 283 instead of 302. This was much more pronounced earlier in the day, since HUT was only about $10.50, and it was still cheaper. Well, it was much cheaper. It was about around $1.50. And so the other advantage is, even though it's still a little bit cheaper, this is technically closer to 40 than RIOT is. So if I was going to purchase long call options and I wanted to pick something that I could afford, and I had to choose between HUT and RIOT, I would take the 35 strikes in HUT everything else being equal. Now, if you know something about the company and you're like, you know what, Riot is better than Hut, and or you know, Kerrisdale has recently decided they were going to short Riot. So if you think Riot's going to wreck the shorts and maybe they'll get squeezed out or something, have to cover, and the Riot will pump, there could be all kinds of other factors. But bottom line is, if Riot and Hut both go to $40 a share because you paid less for the Hut option, you'll end up making more money. So that's another way that options profit calculator can be a valuable tool to decide what options to select in different environments. And let's just check. So the delta, what did I say the delta was on this? 0.359. So what is that, about 50 cents per delta? That would be 0.38. A little over 50 cents per delta here. It's a little bit harder to compare with Mara because the strikes are not going to be the same. And even IREN, I went out here, and the biggest strike I could get out here was 22.50. So if I compare the 22 strikes on IREN, $3 compared to $3.50. Riot, I think, is much closer. Yeah, Riot is $3.18 compared to $3.45 on IREN. And IREN just recently pumped, so the implied volatility could be a little higher here. Maybe that's why the IREN calls are a little bit more expensive. But let me just check. If I go out here, what's the top strike? Okay, so the lowest delta I can even get is a 0.5. And so this is about, what did I say this one was? Yeah, if I have 36 delta here, 50 cents would be 18. Let me think, for one delta, this times 3, that's almost $6. So if I double this delta and get to 100, that would be about $11 for one delta. Yeah. So just if you're looking at buying delta itself, Hut is even cheaper than Mara. All right, I think I'll leave it there. Just doing a quickie. Tomorrow is roll day, so not a lot to cover trade-wise other than, let me look at this position here. Should I pick up one more of these? Or actually, I think I can go out to January. Yeah, 4 minutes to pick this up. Oops. Not sell one, buy one. And I may want to sell off some shares to afford this. I'll try to buy it for 129. Probably will not go through. But let's walk that up. 129.50. $130.50. 250. All right, 132.50. All right, so I spent 13 grand on that. So let me peel off a few shares. What, like 10 shares? Might be 20 shares actually. See if I can get this in before. Shit, how much did I pay for it? 13. Let's peel off like 18 shares. No, 16. 15. There we go. All right, so I have roughly about the same amount of buying power, but I sold 15 shares and picked up 1 LEAPS, and that one is a 3800 strike for January 17th. That is 25 deltas. And so I sold 15 shares. That's 15 delta. And I picked up 25 delta for about the same price. So I control more deltas now than I did before. So this is a little bit of a weird twist on buy low, sell high. So since MicroStrategy is down a bit, I'm using that opportunity to buy leverage cheap. So I sold straight up shares. So even though the share price on MicroStrategy was down a little bit, it's like, well, wait a minute, why does that make sense to sell shares? In relationship to the leveraged option, the option itself gets cheaper in a greater multiple than the shares do. So let's just go all the way to the top. So this 3800 strike LEAPS that I just bought got 15%, almost 16% cheaper today, even though MicroStrategy was only down 7.5%. So almost looking at shares versus an option as a pairs trade, which is, I guess it would be a correlated pairs trade. I don't even know if that makes any sense. But since MicroStrategy shares only got 7% cheaper and the LEAPS got 16% cheaper, I sold shares to buy the LEAPS. And if the reverse happens, if MicroStrategy pumps to 2,000, then I could sell my LEAPS and buy shares. So, all right. I hope that made sense. This is long options from a short option, an option seller's perspective, and hopefully it makes sense. All right, be good, Joe.